Okay, so I'm going to be talking about value quite a bit going forward here, so let's get into value. So if you go back in time through what they call an etymological dictionary, and this is an important thing when you're trying to trace the definitions of words over time, because one of the things that's been done as far as our education goes, and particularly anything that is meaningful like finance in our lives, we've kind of been dumbed down through the manipulation of language. You know, for example, the idea that we call, these pieces of paper we carry around money when they're actually currency. That is a dumbing down of our language so that we can be confused about what we're talking about all the time. So it's very hard to get a handle on where you're at, because in fact, value is relative. All values are relative. If you trace the origin of the word value and the word worth, they both kind of meant the same thing. If you trace them back through etymology to about 700 years ago, in the context of finance, value and worth would mean the following. They would mean equal to. Okay, so let me demonstrate this. If I ask you what's the value of your house and you want to express that in dollars, which is one way of expressing it. So if you wanted to express your value, you would say, well, the value of my house is $1 million. In other words, it's equal to $1 million. So in the context of the expression, you have the definition. Now, you might ask, why are you straining so hard to explain this? Well, going forward, you'll see why these things are so important. It may not be evident to you right now why definitions are so important to the dialogue about finances. If we're having a conversation about money, or anything for that matter, and we're not really understanding what the other person means, if there isn't a strict definition for the words we're using to describe things, then we're really not having a proper communication. So it's really important that we understand definitions, and as I said earlier, money's a creature of law. Money and currency are a creature of law. So law is all about very specificity of words. That's a tough one to say, specificity. I think I'll avoid that word in the future. But anyway, so all values are relative. And for example, like, let's get into some other ways that we can express the word value. I mean, if ask you what the value of something is or why you value something, that's arbitrary to you. Like you may value, I've heard it said, if a person is chained in a room and the room is set on fire, they're going to value a hacksaw a lot more than a plumber might, right? It's going to mean their life, so they would put more personal value on that, and so that's relative to the situation. Again, all values are relative. What is this house worth to you? Well, it would depend on the situation, where the house is, how much the other individual on the other end of the transaction wanted that house, as to the perceived value of it. Now, of course, values as an average in an aggregate are going to be very, specific within a range. Like, what is the average home value in terms of dollars, of course. So people will argue that, the term is meaningless, but again, the term value is translatable across a number of different perceptions of value to the individual. It's almost a philosophical conversation at that point, more than a technical conversation. But for the argument's sake, over talking about things that are monetary, we need to understand that the word value means equal to. Okay, so this is going forward. Just when we talk about value, hopefully you'll all watch this video and understand, and I'll repeat it at times, value. I think this is another thing we have to do when we're talking about something where we're trying to unlearn a bunch of fiction that we know, or misinformation, and we're trying to build a new framework of understanding, is that we have to go through these exercises of repeating things and making them stick in our brain, because this is how we get trained away or brainwashed away from truth and fact, is gradually through repetition. You may have noticed some of that going on in the last couple of years, if I don't mind saying. But we have to retrain ourselves by constantly reminding ourselves of the meaning and the understanding behind things as we go forward to build that new framework. So I'll be bringing it up constantly, this value idea. You can count on that. So anyway, value means equal to. Just keep that stuck in your head. Value, equal to. Thanks for listening.